What's up, everybody? Brett here, back today playing some more Total War Warhammer 2. It's going to be a replay. Once again, me playing as the Ola Skinks, the all-skink army. Going to be taking it to the bloody hands. My opponent's going to be jinxed forever. And we're playing on... I can never pronounce the French name of this map. Let's slow-mo it real quick. So, guys, before we even get into it, I want to say right off the bat, I can tell my opponent was maybe a little bit new. I like the overall idea of the army. I just think my opponent, based on, and you guys will see what I'm talking about in a second here. My opponent's deployment, for me, felt a little bit off, as well as some of the micro is going to slip pretty heavily. But it was still a fun game, and it wasn't close. I'm going to say that. I'm going to spoilers right off the bat. But it was very fun, and toward the end, I could tell he was having a better time scrapping and trying to pull resources together, and he was making some of those plays, but there's nothing wrong with being a newer player on the ladder and getting that experience. So, my army, all skinks, I've got two groups of chameleon skinks with their poison and their invisibility, basically stalk. They're going out on either flank, so two groups there. My front line is made up of a mix of red-crested skinks and skink cohorts because I want that poison in the front line mixed in. Skink cohorts, you know what? They take a beating. They take a beating, and they always rally, and they always come back. In my mind, it's very, like, loreful. It's just like, the skinks don't want to stop fighting. They're just so tiny, man. They're not Saurus. They have big hearts and little bodies. But my back line, backing them up, is going to be even more skinks. Skink cohorts with javelins. So these guys are going to throw their javelins, use all their ammo, and then they're going to join their skink brothers in the front lines, helping to fight. So, for my caster choice, a skink priest with the lore of beast. I love bringing them on the standard Stegodon that has the huge range, the 360 range ballista, as well as I have two spells, Flock of Doom, and of course the Manticore summon. But in his own right, he's an absolute tank and monster that just has to be dealt with at some point. And no one wants to go and engage this thing head on because it's such a beast to take down. But if you don't, I'm going to get maximum value out of my Winds of Magic throughout the entire battle. And then lastly is my Flying Corps, which is already sort of getting into the mix here. I managed to scout out these Goblin Wolf Riders hidden in the forest with my Skinks, and then pounce instantly with the Colossadon Hunters. I like these guys for my Ripperdactyl choice because they're anti-large. And then paired with Tic-Tac-Toe, who is the skinkiest of the Skinks probably, he has two abilities here, which I like. Mask of Heaven's one of his items that gives armor and melee defense to flying units, as well. And I think that's on him. That's kind of an auto include. I think it's something you just got to build into his cost because it's so good. And then you pair that with his Master of the Skies abilities, which gives him melee defense and speed. So just in case there was any type of duel that I was going to need to have, I wanted to have that ability. And then you pair them with the Colossadon Hunters, who have their ability to basically take combat steroids. They take their stim packs, and you see here, they are just swarming these wolves. But they do rampage, and you can counter the rampage, I believe, by popping... See, it's Toad Rage. That's what it's called, Toad Rage. You can pop the cold-blooded and get them to stop rampaging. And that's basically it for my army. I also have another Skink Chief over here with some just real standard Pterodon Riders. So they're like my ranged component for flying, and Tic-Tac-Toe and the Colossadon Hunters are my melee version. I'm looking for big targets to snipe out, but, I'll take Goblin Wolf Riders, which are technically large, so we're getting that bonus damage, and we're crushing them. So, here we go. I'm going to summon my first Manticore. My opponent's rocking two Goblin Rock Lobbers, as well as Orc Boar Chariots. Just a big, crazy mix of goblins, and I was kind of confused. My opponent just was like, I want all the infantry. He's got goblins, he's got Savage Orc Biggins, more goblins, he's got black orcs, which I love this color scheme on them, the black and white. They look super awesome. And then just a front line with some night goblins. So these guys are invisible, hiding in the trees, and as well as having stalked themselves. So my units are going to come upon them, not seeing them, and then we're going to be engaged with the poison. Perhaps this is my opponent's plan, and then he'll push through with the black orcs. I'll be tied down, and then he'll try to blend me with some of these harder hitting units. He's also got a couple archers, just archer airboys. I like those. In a pinch, they can fight in melee, but they have a little bit better armor piercing than the weak goblin variant. And then, yeah, let's not forget, guys, a giant. So kudos to my opponent just for bringing a giant. I personally love the giant on almost every faction that can bring them, but I really like it for the orcs. Oh, his belly button clapped together. That's pretty gross. That's pretty gross. And then real basic orc war boss here. He does have one of his abilities. See if we can hover over it. Smash him faster. Affects allies in range, gives melee attack and leadership. That's a really good ability. And then he also has the Black Orc Big Boss with Heroic Killing Blow, as well as Get Back Here. So, really tough, like, melee core at the heart of this army with a little bit of, you know, the range components of the Goblin Rock Lobbers. I would probably put some of these goblins back here to protect them. I wouldn't put all my infantry bunched up like this. But you can see I'm corralling my opponent. As we engage here, and we can go ahead and full speed it, I'm jumping on another group, Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers, that were also deployed out here. And I'm allocating my resources. I'm splitting up my Skinks. I'm going to be trying to chase a lot of this stuff off the battlefield. I'm letting my red-crested Skinks, my regular Skinks, just go ahead and engage these Night Goblins. And I'm making the other guys work for it. You know, you got to come through the hail of Javelin Fire. The Manticore is going to be used to shut down one of the Goblin Rock Lobbers. My Chameleon Skinks are shooting at all different targets. The Skink Chief, I think I'm going to put him on the Giant pretty soon. They have massive amounts of ammunition, 72 shots. If they're uncontested in the air, just keep them up there. Good Flock of Doom here for me is going to be hitting 3 units. So doing a little bit of damage. I didn't overcast it, though maybe I should have. Most of the Orc units in this fight are not heavily armored, so an overcast would be a little bit of a waste. And the Manticore is going to be fighting now. Decide to bring my Pterodon Riders in just in melee and shut down these Orc Arrow Boys. Skinks are going to be kiting as they do. And we're just going to chase a lot of stuff off the battlefield. Not wanting to allocate all my resources to killing Forest Goblin Spider Riders, I decided to bring Tic-Tac-Toe and the Colossadon Hunters back in. Some of my Skinks have been pushed through to shut down the other Rock Lobber, but this is what I'm talking about, guys. These 2 units were forgotten for quite some time. My opponent was having a hard time, I believe, microing. Meanwhile, my Skink Priest is just shooting that big ballista. See what he's targeting. He'll get a shot off any second now. Here we go. Yeah, just right in front into the goblins, helping out the Skink cohort buddies. And I think my Skink Chief actually right now is shooting at the Orc War Boss, getting damage over time. There's no reason to commit. I know this might look like a lapse in micro, but it's really not. Sometimes there's no reason to commit 2 units at once to a fight that you know you're going to lose. Just let your 1 unit fight, hold it down, and then while you get your shots off. Now, I didn't want to wait for my opponent to realize his Orc Boar Chariots were AFK, So I sent in the Colossadon Hunters. I'm going to pop their buffs in just a second here. And they're just going to start absolutely chewing through these dudes and taking them down. And the Pterodon Hunters are being used in melee more than anything else. And since they changed the rule that poison doesn't have friendly fire and affect your own units, to me, Chameleon Skinks have gone up in value significantly. They were always good, but now to me they're way better. Just having them to shoot into the blob can be excellent. And when you get close enough to a Stegodon, a mounted Stegodon like this, it also has these poison, these short-range, high missile strength poison attacks as well. And of course the terror is just going to kick in instantly. And look at all the damage we're doing to this war boss from the sky. Just poking him down. This fight over here, not that important. I'm just tying down lots of infantry with lots of weak infantry of my own. My guys cost 300 gold apiece. His, are Black Orcs. So even if he wins the fight, he's not really winning the fight, And I'm happy just to sit my Skink Priest here and let him use his ammunition, which is basically like infinite when it comes to the poison attacks. But he's short-range ballisting them. That's pretty awesome. And I'm just happy to kind of gather my infantry out here. I'll pull them all under control in just a second. But the Orc War Boss goes down, sniped in the back from the Skink Chief. And my Chameleon Skinks here are about done kiting the Giant. They're out of ammo. And at a certain point, I'm just going to send them into melee to pin the Giant in place, let them do a little bit of damage. I feel like I've got this battle well in hand. Now, the Black Orc Big Boss, while still being popped, he's in good fighting shape. And if he can link up the Black Orc Big Boss with the Black Orcs and all this infantry left, he can make quite the blob. I've used all the infantry, the javelins, the actual javelins on my infantry that I had. Most of my Chameleon Skinks are running out of ammo. My Skink Chief, he still has 29 shots left. He's pretty good. But Tic-Tac-Toe, being used to chase off the last of the boar chariots. Some of these night goblins are being chased off. The Colossadon hunters are doing well. The pterodon hunters are going to chase off the rock lobber. The chameleon skinks are finishing off the air boys. So there's a lot of my resources being allocated to chasing. So when I consolidate in the future, I'm going to have to do it smartly. Yeah, those poor skinks. They actually shattered. Unusual. Maybe they've been broken 3 times, and then they finally shattered. But it looked like they were going to come back for a second. But if I'm the opponent, I want to take whatever leadership I have left and bring them as close to the Black Orc Big Boss, or whatever leadership I have, and bring it back to my infantry. I want to reunite all my forces together to get that encouragement aura and make kind of a last bastion of defense. Probably even fighting in the trees. That way large units take a debuff. Maybe some of whatever ranged firepower I have left isn't as effective. And it's at this point that I realize I'm just going to charge my Skink Priest in. Let's get a fat charge here. Let's KO this bad boy. Oh, yeah. Just tears up those goblins. But the Black Orcs are not to be underestimated. Their armor piercing is real. And they're going to start to do some serious damage. Even though I've got 110 armor here, once I get fully surrounded by them, it's not going to be a good time. Some poison damage going off, debuffing the goblins, but I need it to hit the Black Orcs in order to be really effective. And I'm just buying time. I know it's a matter of time before my Skink Chief is able to snipe out the giant. Just a couple more shots. I don't really want to re-engage with these chameleon skinks, but he's broken regardless. So I decide to stop chasing, or I have finished chasing off everything on that side of the battlefield. And I'm bringing in the Pterodon Riders and Tic-Tac-Toe back across, because I see the Black Orcs are making a little bit of headway, tearing into my Skink Priest. The Black Orc Big Boss is not a large target, so I'm not getting the bonus versus large from the Ripperdactyls, the Colossadon Hunters. If these were the standard variant, they might actually do more damage. But they do have Frenzy still active because they're above 50% HP, so that's bad news for my opponent. And I'm also going to give them their combat buff in a bit, and here comes Tic-Tac-Toe providing that armor. And I think I'm going to forget about him for just a second. That's no good. But the fight is obviously going well. I'm going to get another Flock of Doom. That's going to shatter these Night Goblins. These Goblins here are going to shatter as well. And that's going to be it for my opponent. But a fun battle. But I will say, Jinx forever. I don't know if you're ever going to see this. But, yeah, keep on trying, man. Keep on learning. If you're new, I would suggest taking armies that don't have as many compositions. And I don't know really a better way to say this. I make a lot of hot groups, right? My front line is a hot group. My secondary line is a hot group. One flanking group is a hot group. The other flanking group is a hot group. My caster is a hot group. My Lord and Ripperdactyl is a hot group. So was the Skink Chief and the Pterodons. So I group everything according to their roles, but that's a lot of micro, right? And even in the midst of battle, my grouping is not necessarily the most important thing, but it helps me to get the ball rolling and to get the battle started. If you're a newer player and you're not using hot groups, having, you know, multi-layers of infantry mixed with archers, mixed with light cav, mixed with heavy chariots, mixed with skirmish cav, mixed with a monster, mixed with artillery, mixed with, you know, multiple hero type characters, you're asking a lot of your own micro, and I would say that's probably not a great idea. So, Tic-Tac-Toe, super cheap. He's one of the cheapest Lizardman options, and he's incredible, honestly. If he'd have had a real challenge this battle, I think he would have done great. My Skink Chief got a ton of value just shooting at the War Boss and the Giant the whole time. This guy more than paid for himself. 7,000 damage he dealt. Don't sleep on these guys. They were busted when they first came out, and they're still just a little bit busted. Yeah, look at the damage done by my caster. 137 kills. Not a lot of damage value because most of his Flock of Dooms were on, you know, weaker targets, but just a ton of damage. 11,000, getting close to 12,000. And this is not even counting the Manticore that he summoned, which no doubt absorbed some damage as well as dealing some. Took one of the rock lobbers offline really soon. And then, let's see here, the Skinks, they just have to come close to paying for themselves, and I'm happy. My red-crested Skinks, you know, they got torn up pretty good. Yeah, everybody basically did what they had to do. Any outstanding, this guy, I don't know who you were shooting at. Probably the Giant, but 1,300 value for a chameleon skink is pretty ridiculous. and then good damage on the Colossadon Hunters, and then good damage. Yeah, just all around. Everyone pulled their weight, with maybe the biggest contributor being the Skink Priest, just dealing tons and tons of damage. For my opponent, let's see, his War Boss never really got in the fight, sadly. Big Boss did a great job. His Goblins performed well versus Skinks. If you're expecting a Skink-type army, Goblins might be your best bet. Yeah, just match them cheap unit for cheap unit. A lot of kills, but not a lot of value. It's like, what are you chopping up? You know, you're chopping up 300 gold units. These Air Boys never got to get online. The Wolf Riders never got to do it. Yeah, it's just... I would like to see my opponent's build played with a little bit more... little more skill, a little more experience, and see how maybe my build would have done. But it was still a fun battle. Thank you, Jinx Forever, for sticking it out. I was hoping you wouldn't concede early on, but you're a tough customer, so thank you very much. Guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Brett, channel's Goodtalk Gaming, and I just wanted to get you guys a fun little skink video in honor of Oxwald, that'll be coming in the next DLC. But that's it for me today. As always, y'all, I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.